I remember the night everything inside me shifted, like someone finally cracked open a window in a house that had been sealed shut for years. It was late October in Willow Creek, a small American town tucked between tired mountains and highways that only truckers seem to love. The air had that crisp bite that smelled like bonfires and damp leaves, the kind of smell that tells you summer's done pretending. Before we continue, drop your city and time in the comments, and thanks for listening to my story. Now, back to the story. I was 42 then, running on fumes, drifting through days like someone who'd forgotten how to feel anything sharp or sweet. Life had worn me down in quiet ways, divorce papers signed without ceremony, dreams stored away in dusty boxes, and a heart that beat more out of obligation than wonder. I spent most evenings in Bennett's Diner on Route 9, my safe little corner where the coffee was burnt but warm, and nobody asked why I always sat alone. That night, I slid into my usual red booth, pulled out my planner even though there was nothing worth planning, and told myself I was fine. Fine enough, fine as people get when they're used to disappointment. Then the door swung open, and that tiny bell above it chimed like it had something important to announce. He walked in, young, bright-eyed, carrying a camera strapped across his chest, and wearing that easy kind of smile people lose as they get older. His name, as I would later learn, was Ethan Carter, 26, adventurous, restless, the kind of man who still believed in things. He took the booth across from mine, ordered pancakes at 9:30 at night, and asked the waitress, Lynn, if she'd ever seen the mountains glow at sunrise. His voice was warm, hopeful, untouched. I remember thinking, God, I used to sound like that. I tried to focus on my planner, but my eyes kept drifting toward him. He laughed with his whole chest, like someone who'd never been afraid to be heard. Something inside me twisted. Not attraction, not yet. Just recognition. The kind you feel when you see a younger version of who you were before life got heavy. He caught me looking once, and instead of glancing away like most people do, he smiled. Soft, friendly, disarming. "Long day?" he asked. I should have ignored him. I should have offered a polite nod, gone back to the hollow life I'd accepted. But something in his eyes, something bright and curious, pulled the truth out of me. "Long few years," I said. He chuckled like he understood more than he should have. "Yeah, I know that feeling." I doubted it. How could someone so young, so alive, know anything about loneliness that settles in your bones? But I didn't say it. I didn't say anything. When I left the diner later, Ethan held the door open for me. It was a small gesture, but it warmed something inside me I thought had died. Over the next few weeks, I found him there more often, sometimes editing photographs on his laptop, sometimes reading a beaten-up paperback, sometimes just sitting with that same sunrise smile, like he knew something good was coming. We started talking, a little at first, then more. Conversations that began with weather turned into stories about places he'd traveled, people he'd met, and things he still wanted from life. His voice always carried that spark, hope mixed with wonder, like the world was a story he couldn't wait to finish reading. I told him pieces of my life too, the parts that still felt safe to share. He listened in a way few people ever had, with this quiet attention that made me feel like I mattered in a world where I'd started believing I didn't. He made me laugh again, really laugh, the kind that shakes loose the dust inside your chest. Every time it happened, I felt pieces of myself waking up after years of sleeping. One evening, as snow began drifting across Route 9, we walked out of the diner together. The parking lot lights cast long shadows on the ground, and the world felt small and hushed, the way it does before winter settles in. "You ever just forget how to breathe?" I asked him before I could stop myself. He looked at me with this gentle seriousness that made my throat tighten. "Yeah, but you're doing it now." I didn't understand then what he meant, or maybe I didn't want to. We fell into a rhythm after that. Late night coffees, shared silences, stories told in that red booth that had once felt like a prison, but now felt like a place where life could start again. But the night everything truly changed, the night he reached inside me and held a part of me I thought was far beyond saving, came in December. A storm had rolled into Willow Creek, heavy and cold, the kind that rattles windows and makes the whole town feel like it's shivering. I was sitting in the diner alone, staring at Christmas lights someone had half-heartedly strung up. Then Ethan rushed in, shaking snow from his hair, cheeks flushed from the wind. He looked around, saw me, and his whole face lit up like he'd been looking for me. "There you are," he said, sliding into my booth without asking. Those 3 words, and they melted something in me. Nobody had sounded happy to find me in years. He pulled out 2 paper cups from a local bakery. They were giving these out for free, peppermint hot chocolate. Thought you might want one. I felt it then. Not attraction, not crush, not infatuation. Something deeper, something terrifying, something warm. We talked for hours that night, long after the storm eased, long after the diner emptied. We talked about dreams, regrets, fears, things I hadn't spoken out loud to anyone. And when I admitted, voice cracking, that I didn't know who I was anymore, he didn't flinch. He didn't pity me. He said, "Then let me remind you." Something inside me broke open. Something inside me began to breathe again. That moment, that was the beginning of everything. Ethan didn't save me all at once. Healing isn't a lightning strike. It's a slow sunrise, gentle, steady, impossible to ignore once it begins. In the weeks that followed, he became this constant presence in my life, slipping into my days like warmth returning to frozen hands. We started taking drives along Route 22, windows cracked just enough to let in the winter air, music playing low as the world blurred past. He loved showing me places he thought were beautiful, old barns, frozen lakes, ridges where the sky stretched wider than anything I'd allowed myself to feel. One morning, he drove us to a hill just outside town. Snow blanketed everything, glittering under the pale sun. He set up his camera, took a few shots, then turned to me with that same grin that always knocked the breath out of me. "Stand over there," he said, pointing toward a fence post. I laughed. "Ethan, I'm not picture material." His expression softened. "You have no idea how wrong you are." He took the photo anyway, and when he showed me the preview, my hair catching light, my smile small but real, I didn't recognize the woman I saw. She looked alive, present, human. That night, when I sat alone at home, I kept staring at that picture until tears blurred it. Because for the first time in years, I saw someone who wasn't broken. Ethan and I kept growing closer, the space between us shrinking in these tiny, innocent ways. Shared jokes, accidental touches, lingering looks. But underneath it all, I carried this constant fear. He was 26, I was 42. The math alone felt like a barrier. One evening, as we walked along Main Street beneath strings of warm lights, he brushed my hand with his. I felt the electricity shoot through me, sharp and sweet. I pulled away too quickly. He stopped walking. "Did I do something wrong?" "No," I whispered. "You didn't. Ethan, there's a line here we shouldn't cross." He tilted his head slightly. "Who drew it?" His question sat heavy in the cold air. I didn't answer. I couldn't. But the truth was simple. I was terrified, not of what people would think, but of what he made me feel, alive in a way that made every old wound ache as it healed. We didn't talk about it again for a while, but the tension stayed, humming beneath every laugh and every quiet moment. One night in February, he showed up at my door. No diner, no coffee, just him. His eyes were red, like he'd been crying or fighting something inside himself. "I need to say something," he said. My heart pounded. "Ethan." "Let me," he whispered. I opened the door, wider. He stepped inside, snow melting off his coat, breath shaking. "I know you think I'm too young. I know you think life is supposed to work a certain way, but you make me feel grounded, seen, like I'm part of something that matters." He paused, voice trembling. "And I don't care how old you are. I care that you're you." Every wall I'd spent years building started to crumble. "I can't be your whole world," I said softly. "I can't give you the kind of future someone your age deserves." He stepped closer. You don't have to be my whole world. You just have to let me be part of yours. My breath broke. He reached for my hand, slow, deliberate, giving me time to pull away. I didn't. The moment our fingers intertwined, something lit inside me, soft, bright, terrifyingly beautiful. That night, we talked until dawn, sitting on my couch wrapped in blankets, sharing pieces of our souls like secrets held too long. And somewhere between his laughter and my tears, love bloomed. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady, warm, undeniable. People in town whispered when they saw us together. Some judged, some smiled, but none of it mattered. Because Ethan made every day feel like a new beginning. He showed me joy in small things, the smell of fresh paint in an art store, the crunch of gravel under boots, the hush of early morning streets. He made living feel less like surviving and more like discovering. Spring arrived in Willow Creek slowly, the way it always does. Buds pushed through cold soil, the river thawed, and I felt myself thaw too. One evening in late April, we went back to that hill where he'd taken my picture. The grass was still damp, the sky streaked with pink and gold. Ethan set down a blanket, then sat beside me, knees brushing mine. "You know," he murmured, "before I met you, I was drifting, pretending I knew where my life was going." I looked at him surprised. "You always seem so sure." He laughed softly. "That's the trick. You fake certainty until someone gives you a reason to actually feel it." "And I did that?" I whispered. He turned toward me fully, eyes shining in the dying light. "You saved me right back." The wind carried our silence, warm and full. Then he kissed me, not with urgency, but with reverence, as if he understood the lifetime of hurt he was touching. In that moment, every broken piece of me fit together again. We stayed on that hill until stars pricked the sky, talking about everything and nothing, holding on to time like it finally belonged to us. Life didn't magically become perfect. We had tough days, doubts, moments where fear tried to claw its way back in. But Ethan never let me return to the woman who'd stopped trying to live. He reminded me every day that love isn't measured in years. It's measured in presence, in gentleness, in choosing someone even when the world doesn't understand. And I chose him, again and again. Years later, when I look back on my life before Ethan, it feels like watching someone else move through fog. Someone tired, someone waiting. But then a young heart walked into a worn-out diner on Route 9 and found a woman who'd forgotten how to breathe. He saved me, and I saved him. Not through miracles, not through grand gestures, but through love, the kind that brings you back to life, one quiet moment at a time. Even now, when I walk past Bennett's diner and hear that little bell ring above the door, I feel the echo of that first night, the one that cracked open a window in my soul. Sometimes we go back there together, sitting in that same red booth. Ethan still orders pancakes at night, still smiles like there's magic stitched into the edges of his world, still looks at me like I'm a chapter he's grateful to read. I've learned to stop questioning why he chose me. Love doesn't follow rules, it follows truth. And the truth was that we needed each other. Different ages, different stories, same ache for something real. A half-empty coffee cup, his jacket on the back of my chair. Our shadows stretched across the sidewalk at sunset. He said these were the things that made a life feel lived. I started to believe him. I found color again, music, laughter that didn't feel borrowed, hope that didn't feel fragile. He'd catch me smiling for no reason and tease, breathing's easier now. And he was right. We built a home together, not a perfect one, not the kind you see in magazines, but one filled with photographs, warmth, and the quiet certainty that we'd chosen each other against every odd. Sometimes, on slow Sunday mornings, he wraps his arms around me from behind while I make coffee. He presses a kiss to my shoulder and whispers, "You're my favorite part of this world." And every single time I feel that same warmth that saved me years ago. Ethan didn't just walk into my life, he walked into the empty spaces and filled them gently. He didn't ask me to be young. He just asked me to be alive. And I finally am. If you'd told me back then that a young heart would save mine, I would have laughed or cried or walked away before I got hurt. But life has a way of surprising the tired, the broken, the ones who've forgotten how to hope. And sometimes, if you're lucky, love arrives exactly when you've stopped looking. Thank you.